better understand the algorithms, and then you better understand the improving performance through algorithms. Now, in this, I'll not call it as a lecture, but it is a kind of a discussion that we will do it. In this, I'll highlight that you have studied algorithms in maybe design and analysis of algorithms, maybe in third year that is shifted. I think it was in B, now it is in T. And in that you have studied how algorithm play important role in improving the performance of the system, because there are now hardware limitations to improve the performance. We will also see what are the hardware limitations of improving the performance, and then how algorithms can help us to leverage the capacity of this hardware, or to use the capacity of the hardware and improve the performance. So the topic is that need of GPU computing using CUDA. Now, we all know that the basic computing machine is designed by von Neumann, or it is called as von Neumann architecture. And in this, there are three components. We all know that it is, one is the input device. The second one is the actual processing. The processing happens here. And we see the output of it, of the processing. Now, the input device, typically the processing unit contains the control unit, the ALU, and the memory unit, in which the RAM, the cache, these all are there, in which the onboard memory is typically less and it is fastest. And from that memory, the different instructions are fetched into the control unit, and the arithmetic logic unit executes those instructions, and we see the output. It's algorithm output. Now, typical problem, we all know that it is divided through algorithm. That is, we have certain problem, and then it is divided into number of instructions. Let's take a problem. Let's take a very general problem of having a farming. Nowadays, the farming has started a new kind of era, in which maybe it will come as what it is, the next era. Now, let's take a farming. In that, what different steps we have? We have to first prepare the soil. Then we have to sow the seeds. Then we have to add some manures, fertilizers, so that to give the strength, we have to add some nitrogen, phosphorus, potash into it. And then we have to water it regularly. And then after the harvesting, that is when it starts blooming, and when harvesting comes, then we have to remove that crop. We have to take out its crop, store it properly, and then sell it in the market. So these are the different steps that is to be executed. Similarly, we have algorithmic problems in which different instructions, different steps are there. It is to be converted, and then these are given to execution. A processor is like a person who is executing these instructions. All right, this processor. Now, if there is only one processor, that is, there is only one person executing it, then these all instructions has to be executed by only one processor, by one person. So by default, it will take too much time. Now, if we have another processor, that is another processor, and then what we can do, we can give some of the task of it, of some part. Let's say this half part is given to this, and half part is given to this. If we have one more, then we can give 1/3 of it based on who is master, who is this one. So we can give to this, we can give to this. and we can give to this. This is what is the actually parallelizing the algorithms, actually the basic concept of it. That is, you have to see the problem, convert it into different instructions or different task, and finding out the area where it can be parallelized and giving it to the different persons. That is what is called as task parallelism typically. That is, you divide the task and see out which different tasks can be parallelized. At the same time, what happens is that certain tasks require certain data, and that data, part of data is required to part of processor. For example, the soil is required during the preparation time, isn't it? But soil is not required when you want to purchase some kind of a manure, or you want to purchase the seeds. You have to go into the market and purchase the seeds. So in that time, you need not carry soil with you, isn't it? So another person can do that task, and the soil preparation part can be done by one person at the same time, like that. So data parallelism. So what is the data? Data is on which we are working. So so part of data can be given to one processor, part of data can be given to another processor. Now, we all know that the instructions that are now we see these instructions are executed in 4 cycles. It is called as 4-cycle execution. Now let us see that 4-cycle execution. Now, first we know that it is a fetch operation. That is, we fetch the instruction from memory into the control unit, into the, and then we decode that instruction. That is, we want to find it out what that instruction means. And that is converting that instructions or analyzing its interrupts, and then giving it into execution. That is, giving it to arithmetic logic unit. Arithmetic logic unit, that is ALU, executes that instruction, and then the result of that is stored back into the memory. This is how it is executed, and this is called as a machine cycle. Now, the machine cycle, we all know it is based on the clock cycle that is present into computer. Are you able to hear everyone? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is it finding okay now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. If you have any kind of a question that you haven't got it or something in any there, then you can please ask a question. No doubt. No problem. Huh? Okay. Now, the instructions are executed in a machine cycle. That is, it executes one cycle. That is, it has one high, one low, high, low. That is what is the cycle, isn't it? This is a cycle. Now, this cycle has one tick, that is low part, and it has one tock, that is high part. This is a one cycle. This part is a one cycle. All right. Now, let us assume that one instruction is executed in one cycle, and let us assume that in 1 second we have one cycle. All right, one cycle in 1 second. So 1 second. So now, so how many instructions are executed in a minute? So we have executed 60 instructions in a minute. Now we have to increase the performance of this execution, hardware improvement. Then what we have to do? So instead of having one cycle in 1 second, let us have 2 cycles in 1 second. So how many instructions will be executed in then 1 minute? Will be 120. That is twice of the minute, 120. Similarly, we can improve the performance. So instead of having now 1 cycle in 1 second, let us have 4 cycles. Then it will execute 60 into 4, that is 240 instructions, like that. So you can improve you can increase the cycle time, you can decrease the cycle time, or you can increase the frequency. Now frequency is 1 upon the cycle time, that is f frequency, the clock frequency is equal to 1 upon t. T is the clock cycle. So as you decrease the clock cycle, the frequency has to increase, isn't it? So now frequency has to increase. Then the frequency goes from 1 hertz to 2 hertz to 4 hertz to 8 hertz, so on and so forth. It goes to gigahertz, up to gigahertz. That means how many instructions are executed in one cycle? 10 raised to 6 instructions in one cycle. Or though there are 10 raised to 6 ticks, actually not instructions executed, because instructions requires too many cycles depending upon the capacity of that instruction. If it is a simple instruction, just a read instruction, it may be executed in one cycle. If it is execution, arithmetic execution, then it may require 2-3 cycles. Now, if you want to improve the that is the frequency, or you want to decrease the clock cycle, then what you have to do? You have to make the circuit dense. So in a motherboard, if the processor, if you have to improve the clock cycle, then you have to increase the number of transistors into it, or you have to make it a dense integrated circuit, and that has increased the number of transistors or number of transistor count into the processor. So it has gone increased. So according to Moore's law, actually it has started in 1960s. In 60s it has started, Moore's law. It's a scientist, Gordon Moore. He has predicted that during certain amount of time, during certain few centuries ahead, that the number of transistors will double in every 2 years. But it has doubled in 18 months. All right. So that is, it has gone doubling. So now that is how it has increased to the clock frequency. It has got increased to gigahertz. Now after gigahertz, it has not increased. Why? Because now it is not possible to put, if too many transistors are there onto a chip, then it decreases the distance. And transistors creates the heat, isn't it? So if you have a less distance, that means more heat is there in few amount of area or few less amount of area. And then air-cooled machines will not be sufficient to cool such a kind of a machines. That is just normal air, blowing the air onto that chip is not sufficient. You need another kind of a cooling system that is called as a water-cooled machine, or even liquid-based cooled machine, or coolant-based cooling machines will be required for if we have more number of transistors. But this kind of a machines have a high cost, but we want to manufacture a machine with less cost. So we want to have a machine with air-cooled system itself. Then it is not possible to improve its number of transistors, because it creates the heating problem. And so see, as the number of speed increases, so this is a 1.6 gigahertz, this is a 2.4 gigahertz. So see the sudden increase into the heat that is created and power consumption that has created. It is like an exponential increase that happens after 1 gigahertz. Till 1 gigahertz, it is a linear increase. It is a linear, that is, if we draw the graph of heat that is generated, let's say H is a heat and number of transistors, then till 1 gigahertz, let's say it's a 1 gigahertz, then it is a linear increase. But after 1 gigahertz, it suddenly shoots. It suddenly shoots like this, isn't it? So this is a linear point, and this is an exponential point. This is exponential, and this is a linear point. So now this is the trade-off. So this point is a trade-off. That is, here we can get the optimum performance of the machine. That is, till this point we have the controlled heat, and then we can leverage the this much frequency for our computation. So now what scientists have thought of, now why have only one processor? So why have only one person working in a one machine? Let us have more number of person working in a single machine. So that is how they come with the they have come up with the multi-core processors. So that is what in a machine we have, instead of one core we have multiple cores. That is, we have core 1, core 2, core 3, core 4. That is, we have now octa cores, hexa core, and even 16 cores, 32 cores machines. But there are also limitations to these number of cores, because if we increase the number of cores, the size of the your processor increases, because the core is like a chip, and you have to have a chip into it, and that creates the extra space. So space is also limitation, isn't it? So that has limited into even number of cores to in a CPU kind of a machines. So now then, what is the best way to improve the performance? So to improve the performance is then leverage these number of cores. That is, use these number of cores for our computation. So now let's say we have a problem P. So this is a problem P. So now the part of the problem, you must divide it. You must have a capability to divide it so that the part of problem is given to core 1. That is this part. Some part is given to core 2. And this part is given to core 3. That is what is a parallel computing, or that has come into a high performance computing. That is improving the performance through dividing the problem. Now let us see how we can do it with the example of some simple examples, because it is simple to understand through ordinary examples to go to extraordinary examples. Now we all know that this is a multi-core processor, so there is a now number of cores present into this CPUs, and along with the, now we have one more processor is added, which is called as a graphics processor. Typically they are present onto a motherboard. Typically they are present, and we can leverage. It's not only for just display. Typically previously the graphics processor was used only for display, but now we can use it for general computing. It is called as GPGPU. That is general purpose graphics processing unit. That is, instead of just using it for image manipulation or just for video processing or just display processing, we can use it for our algorithmic computation to get the results. So we'll see how we can use it through a package called as CUDA. Now let us see the new era in computing, that is use of multi-core processors and GPUs for parallel computing. So now, how to use multi-core processors? So you might have learnt it using. Have you learned OpenMP? Hello, Ila madam, Pooja madam.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
OpenMP चं झालंय का यांचं, म्हणजे त्यांना माहिती आहे का OpenMP?
नाही सर, OpenMP नाही झालंय.
बरं ठीक आहे. थोडीशी माहिती देऊ का मग त्यांना OpenMP ची?
हो चालेल सर.
Okay. Now let us see how we can use multi-core processors. Now let us see, we have to do certain operations onto vector. So this is a vector, let's say of size n. This is of size n. Now let us say we have to do these operations onto vector. That is, let's say this vector is A, and we have to divide it, this vector with its square root of that element, and then multiply by the same element, and then find out its sign. Let's say these three operations are to be performed onto this vector. Now, if there is only one person available, to execute this, then what that person will do, will have a for loop and will take each element. So that is, it will read this first element and then do these operations onto that element and store the result back again. Then take the second element, do the same operations and do that again. So that is what it will happen serially. This will execute one by one serially by that one person. So now what is the complexity of this algorithm then? If it is executed by one person, then it is executed. Now we know if we do it using frequency count method, we know that this for loop is executed 1 plus n plus 1 plus n times. This entire executions, these three executions are executed nn times, that is 3n times. So total it is executed 5n plus 2 times. Now, if we see the algorithmic complexity of it, that is in asymptotic notation, that is if we see the n is very big, that is it is very, very big. It is 10 to, or n is 10 to infinity. If n is 10 to infinity, then it comes out to be O of n. That is, it is now what it is. It is more concerned with what is the size of n. So these constants 5 and 2 doesn't matter too much when n is infinity. Now, if we have 2 person, instead of now 1 person, we have now 2 person and available. That is 2 processors are available. That is 1 processor and these 2 processors. So what we can do, we can divide this and we can give the same task to half of to this person and half to this person, isn't it? Now, so what will be the complexity then? Our complexity, it will be reduced to O of, if we n tends to infinity, then it will be reduced to O of n by 2. Am I right? Now, if we have 4 processors, then it will be reduced to O of n by 4. And if we have n processors, that is these many n is the size and total n processors are available, then our complexity reduced to O of n by n, that is O of 1. So that is equal to O of 1 complexity. That is a constant complexity. And that is what is the task of high performance engineer, in which he has to leverage the number of processors available and divide the data or divide the task in such a way that it can be maximally given to all the processors without any deadlock or without any dependency. If dependency is there between the two tasks, then that dependency has to be properly tackled before dividing it. If dependency is there, then dividing the task may improve, instead of improving the performance, may decrease the performance. Okay. Now, so this is how it can be done. Now let us see through our example. Like I'll show you how it can be implemented using OpenMP. I'll just show. I already have one program. I'll show to you. Now this is the same vector operation. Can you able to see all this code? Pooja madam? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay. Now, if you have to implement it, I'll just, can I reduce the font a little bit? Is it visible?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the same, now we have a vector. So since we have to allocate too much memory, let's say in the form of 10 raised to 8, 10 raised to 7, then we cannot have a of some 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like this. We cannot have it. All right. Because this memory we cannot have into the stack, because stack has a limitation. So we can leverage the dynamic memory, that is the heap memory. So how to use the heap memory? Heap memory can be used by dynamic memory allocation. So dynamic memory allocation concept is used. So typically when you want to work, when you will do your projects, and when you want to have too much memory, then you need to have a dynamic memory allocation. Typically all these Python, all the programming languages, they typically use the dynamic memory allocation, in which the memory is allocated runtime. They are not statically allocated. Now, I'll explain this program to you. This is a serial execution. Now, first the memory is allocated here using these 10 raised to 8 allocations are done. And I'm assigning some I value to it, some value, some random value or some serial value is assigned to it. And then actual computation is taking place here. That is for I equal to 0 to n, then dividing it by square root and multiplying it and taking a sign of it, and then finding the end time. So first of all, I started a clock, assigned these things, and then ended a clock and find it out how much time it took for serial execution, that is execution time. So let us try to run this program. Okay, so since we have used OpenMP functions, we need to pass its library that can be passed as -f open MP. And since we are using a math library, then we have to use -lm. So now it has executed. Now /a.out. Now it is executing for 10 raised to 8 instructions, 10 raised to 8 data points. So now it has taken 7.5 seconds. So around these many seconds are taken to execute this. Now what we will do, we'll try to parallelize these executions. So how we can parallel, we can make it parallel. We can make it parallel using a function or library called as OpenMP. And in this for loop, typically the maximum execution time is done here. First initializing the data and then executing it. So what we'll do, I'll parallelize this using hash pragma OMP parallel for. So in this case, what is happening? This for loop is getting parallelized. That means if we have, let's say, 4 threads, now these machines, how to come to know how many threads are there? We can come to know using a function called as OMP get number of threads. That function is available in OMP, in which we can get the number of threads into our machine. My machine is 2 cores, and it has actually physically 2 cores and logically 4 cores. What do you mean by physically? Physically means actually 2 cores are present, and logically 4 cores means that on each core there are 2 threads that are working. So it is called as hyper-threading. So it is an Intel machine. It uses a hyper-threading concept in which one core has 2 threads. So logically 4 cores, but physically 2 cores. So now what I'll do, so it has to actually double the performance. Let's say I also parallel this for loop. Okay, now I'll just run this program now. Again, GCC, same command to compile it, -f openmp -lm. Now I'll run this program. Now it should take less than 7. So you can see that it has taken 2.47. So it has used all its threads, 4 threads. So logically it has to make it 1/4 performance. So 7.5 divided by 4. So almost it comes out to be almost it is the 1/4 performance or 1/3 performance. So 7.5 divided by 4. So 4 cores are there. So it has to be come out to be around 1.8. So it is coming out to be 2.4. So 2.4, that means into 3 if we make it. So 7.2, almost it has 1/3. It has what it is, 3 times it has improved the performance. Now let us see another operation. This is a one vector operation. Let us see now another operation called as very popular operation, you all know, is a matrix multiplication operation. That is, we have this 4x4 matrix and this 4x4 matrix. This is to be multiplied to get the 4x4 matrix. All right. Now, to get this element, that is this element. So what we have to do? We have to multiply this row with this column to get this element, isn't it? So how many multiplications are required? This n multiplications plus n additions, almost these. So n multiplications plus n additions. So these many are required for computing one element. Now, if we have only one person doing this task, then what he has to do? He has to do everything. That is, he has to calculate this value, he has to calculate this value, he has to calculate all the values. But now, let's say instead of now one, we have two processors or two persons available on two machine. Then how we can divide the task? Can anybody tell? This is a processor 1, this is a processor 2. Now we have to do this task, and part of the task must be done by this and part of task must be done by this.
Hello, sir. Sir, it parallelly calculate that rows and columns.
Okay.
Two processors.
Okay. Very good. Very good. अजून कोणी दुसरं काही सांगू शकेल? अजून can add someone?
Students, we are waiting for your response.
Sir, we can do the multiplication operation by one processor and the addition operations by another processor.
Okay, very good.
Like a pipeline structure.
Okay. But there is a dependency now. Then what will happen? That the multiplication operation has to be done first, then addition has to be done. So the second processor will have to wait for multiplication to be done. And then once it is done, then the second person will be able to add the answer.
So, sir, it will take more time than
the serial.
Yes, sir.
मग बहुतेक मग हे बरोबर नाहीये. मग ते डिव्हिजन म्हणजे मल्टिप्लिकेशन एकाने करणं बरोबर नाहीये, कारण डिपेंडन्सी वाढते ना.
ऍट अ टाइम सर दोन्ही पण पॅरलली व्हायला पाहिजे ना.
दोन्ही पॅरलली व्हायला पाहिजे, तरच त्याच्यात काहीतरी परफॉर्मन्स इम्प्रूव्ह होईल. म्हणजे डिपेंडन्सी नाही पाहिजे दोघांमध्ये. आता तसा विचार करा. आता तुम्ही सांगितलं ते बरोबर आहे. म्हणजे तुम्ही सांगितलं की एकाने मल्टिप्लिकेशन करायचं आणि दुसऱ्याने ऍडिशन करायचं, पण याच्यात प्रॉब्लेम काय की डिपेंडन्सी आहे. तर असं काहीतरी सोल्युशन द्या की याच्यामध्ये डिपेंडन्सी नाहीये.
Sir, but only for the first operation there is the problem of waiting, but after the for another columns the means like n-1 addition is carrying on, and the current multiplication operation is being working now. So both the processors are doing something.
Both the processes will do something, but there is a dependency. Multiplication operation has to be done, its result has to be added by the another one.
So what we can do is multiple, like the different processors will calculate different m and nth element in the result.
Correct. So
So
that is
first
one
row into first column will be done by 1, second into second will be done by second core, etc.
Okay. Yeah. That is. So now this is a resultant R. Can you say it? This is a result R. So let us divide that result into two. Let's say now two persons are available. So one person will do this task, will calculate this result, and the second person or second processor will calculate this result. So this is done by the first one, and this is done by the second one. So there is no dependency, isn't it? To calculate this, what data is required? To calculate this part, this data is required. So this data is required plus this data, isn't it? To calculate this part, which data is required? This and this. All right. So now to calculate this part, this data is required. This is and this is. But data can be read simultaneously, isn't it? This data. So data is, this is matrix M1, this is M2. This data can be read by two processors simultaneously, isn't it? Without any bottleneck, without any deadlock. But the writing will be a deadlock. But now there is no deadlock here, because this result writing is done by the first processor, and this result writing is done by the second processor. Am I right? So now, if there are now 4 processors available, so instead of now 2, if we have 4, then we can do again part of it. So this is done by 1, this is done by second, this is done by third, and the last one is done by fourth, like that. So this is how you have to divide the matrix multiplication into the number of parallel task, and that parallel task can be executed. So now let us see with how we can execute it, or how we can compute it with the help of multi-core processors with the OpenMP. So let us see. Now this is a matrix multiplication. This is a serial code in which I have taken 1024 by 1024 matrix. So this first matrix is of size 1024 by 1024. 1024 by 1024, and the second is also 1024 by 1024, and the resultant will be also 1024 by 1024. So now we have to allocate that much memory. So how to allocate that much memory? So it is allocated 1024 by 1024, n into n, so this many, and size of integer. So for A, B, and C. And some values are taken. Let's say the one value, some random values are taken into A and B matrix, and the actual computation, the multiplication is done here. That is by taking 3 for loops, 1, 2, 3. All right, so 3 for loops. Now, if it is done by single person, then what is the complexity of the algorithm? Will be, which is based on these 3 loops, because the rest 2 are dominant, they are very less. That means a single instruction, they are constant kind of thing. But the dominant part in this algorithm is this part, that is the 3 for loops. So if we see, then its complexity is O of n cube. If n tends to infinity, then it is O of n cube. Now, if it is done by 2 processors, then its complexity will come out to be O of n cube by 3. N cube by 2, sorry. If it is done by 2 processors. If it is done by n processors, if we have n processor, that means let's say 1024 by 1024, and we have 1024 processors, then its complexity will come out to be for n processors, that is O of n cube upon n, that is equal to O of n square. That means you have reduced the complexity. So complexity previously was O of n cube. So this was the complexity, isn't it? This is O of n cube. Now you have reduced it, that is you have make it to O of n square. So that means the cubic complexity is converted into a what it is, the square complexity, or the not square, actually raised to 2 complexity, right? It is less complexity. So the purpose or more objective of the parallel algorithm is that your complexity must reduce. If you are designing parallel algorithms and your complexity is not reducing, then the algorithm is not parallel algorithm. Parallel algorithm should have less complexity than the serial algorithm. That is the one of the testing criteria of the parallel algorithm. Right? Now this is the dominant part, isn't it? So this is there. Now let us try to work it. Let us run it and let us see how much time does it take. Is 1024 by 1024. It will take too much time, around some 30-40 seconds. Meanwhile, we will see. Now, friends, tell me now, I have to reduce its complexity from O of n square to O of n. How can I do it? म्हणजे मला मॅट्रिक्स मल्टिप्लिकेशन जे आहे ते मला O of n ऑपरेशन मध्ये करायचं आहे instead of O of n square. I have told you how it can be done in O of n square. Can anybody repeat how we have done it in O of n square?
By considering that we have n cores available.
Very good. And now if we have to reduce it to O of n, then how we can do it?
If we want to do it without altering the algorithm, then we need to have O of n square cores.
No, O of n square is a complexity. We need to have we have n square, only n square cores. Yeah, your answer is correct, but it is not O of n square cores. It is only n square cores. Yes, we need n square cores. Very true. So if we have n square cores, then we can do it in O of n complexity. All right. Now let us see how much time it has taken. So it has taken around 31 seconds to complete this task. Now what we will do, we'll make it parallel, this using our cores available. So how we can do it? So I already have one program. So there is one concept in OpenMP called as sections. So using section, what we can do, now we have two. Now, as I told you, as I have told you that I have told you that this part is done by one core and this part is done by another core. That is what is done now using sections. So section 1 is handled by one core and section 2 is handled by another core. So now let us see how that can be done. So it can be done like this. So we have a hash pragma OMP parallel sections in which the first section, that is from 0 to n by 2, that means from this 0th row to n by 2 of the row, this n by 2, this is total n by n, this is n by n. So how many rows are there till this? N by 2. So n by 2 rows is handled in one section. So this one section. And from n by 2 rows to n rows is handled by another section. All right. So now this is handled by another section. Now, and they are now working parallelly. So this part and this part, they are working parallelly by the different cores. So now let us see what is its complexity. So its complexity if we run it, So almost it has to take, yeah, it is taking around 10 seconds to execute this task. Now there is one more concept in OpenMP, you can parallelize it. Instead of now what you have, now I have considered only 2 sections. What if now we have 4 cores available? Then can we do 4 sections again here? Hash pragma OMP section. So it is not a good programming, isn't it? Then it is not a generalized programming. It is now machine specific kind of a programming. It is not a good programming. So good programming is that it should not change. The program should not change based on the machines. It has to be generalized. It should work on any machine. It should work on 2 core machines, 4 core machines, 8 core machines, or any core machines. So how to make it generalized? So you can use it using another concept in OpenMP, which is called as collapse. So let us see how you can do that. So you can do it using collapse, in which hash pragma OMP parallel for. So we are parallelizing this for loop and we are using collapse 2. That means we are saying that parallelize these 2 for loops. All right, collapse 2 means, since if we don't have collapse here, if we don't have collapse, then it will only parallelize the first for loop, that is this loop. And we have collapse 2. That means it will parallelize 2 for loops. And here now we have 3 for loops. So we are making collapse 3. So now let us work it out, this program. So it will have a performance between the 2, between the sections and the serial execution. Because in section we are actually dividing it. We are completely making it independent, the 2 tasks. म्हणजे एकाने दुसऱ्यामध्ये चुळबुळ करायची नाही, दुसऱ्याने पहिल्यामध्ये चुळबुळ करायची नाही. त्यामुळे काय होत आहे की याच्यामध्ये सगळेजण विभक्तपणे त्यांचं काम करतात. पण याच्यामध्ये काय होत आहे की नाव द कंपायलर हॅज टू डिवाइड द टास्क. म्हणजे याच्यामध्ये काय केलं मी, याच्यामध्ये की कंपायलरला सांगितलं की नाव तूच बघ की किती टास्क एका प्रोसेसरला द्यायचं, किती टास्क दुसऱ्या प्रोसेसरला द्यायचं, किती टास्क तिसऱ्या प्रोसेसरला द्यायचं. So it makes a kind of a decision making to the compiler. But now in the first one, we have already taken a decision. We have taken a decision that this part must be executed by one core and this part must be executed by another core. So there is no further thinking onto division of a task. So this executes faster, while as this executes a little bit slower than the section. Have you got it? Why? Okay, have you got it now? Why? Anyone? Any question? OpenMP समजलं का? कोणी उत्तर देऊ शकेल?
Yes, sir.
समजलं ना? Now तुझं नाव काय? तू काय ते N2 कोर्स म्हणाला.
Apurva.
Apurva, Apurva has rightly said that we can still improve the performance by having N2 cores. तर आपल्या कुठल्या मशीन मध्ये N2 cores असतात का? CPUs मध्ये? Let's say our N is let's say 1024. म्हणजे N024 म्हणजे जर 1024 आहे, N2 cores म्हणजे आपल्याला किती कोर लागतील? 1024 into 1024. म्हणजे किती झाले ते? It is almost 10 raised to 10. It is 10 raised to 10. And it is also 10 raised to 10. So if I multiply 10 raised to 10 into 10 raised to 10, so it is 10 raised to 20. So that many cores will be required. So do we have that many cores? Any answer?
If we employ multiple GPUs, then probably yes.
Yes, in CPUs it is not possible. In CPUs we don't have that many cores, but in GPUs we have. So that is what is the difference between CPU and GPU. CPU typically have very less number of cores, but GPUs have very high number of cores. But in that case, certain things are there. So these are the GPUs. how we can employ these GPUs for processing. All right. So now let us see how we can employ it. That is what is called as heterogeneous computing. Heterogeneous computing means that when computing is done on two different kind of platforms. Which two platforms? One platform is a CPU and another platform is a GPU. So we are computing on both CPU and GPU. Therefore, it is called as heterogeneous computing. OpenMP is homogeneous computing because we are only computing on CPU. We are only computing on cores. It is called homogeneous computing. MPI, GPU computing, these are heterogeneous computing. Threads, OpenMP, these are all homogeneous computing. Now, let us see how we can use it, GPUs, for our computation. Now, this is the CPU. This part is a CPU, and this is a GPU that is present onto motherboard of in the motherboard. And so we can pass a data to GPU and instruction. So data and instructions are passed to D plus I, that is data and instructions are passed to GPU. GPU will execute it and it will give the result. And that result is again passed back to CPU for further analysis or further processing. That is what is the steps to have the heterogeneous computing. Now, what's the actual difference between a CPU and a GPU? So we all know that the CPU contains a control unit. It has a cache and it has a DRAM, that is a RAM, and number of cores present into it. And along with that, there is a ALU. So ALU is present. In this, the control unit is a bigger. It is a big size control unit. It has a huge number of instruction set, or it has IA instruction set, or typically these instruction sets are available, which is a huge. So therefore, control unit is a bigger, it's a bulky. While as in GPU, the control unit is very small. It is not very big. Very few instructions are present into GPU, not as IA instructions that are typically present into the CPU architectures or power architectures or Intel architectures. But in GPU, there are less number of control units. The size of control unit is less. So that makes what? So that makes the opportunity for have number of cores, increase number of cores into the GPUs. So there are huge number of cores available into GPU. So it may be in the power of 1,000, 10,000, 20,000, that many number of cores are available into GPU. So now how to leverage it? So there are steps to write a CUDA program. First of all, you need to have, you need to declare and allocate the host and device memory that is in the CPU. So first of all, so now here there is a CPU, and here there is a GPU. So what we'll do, first of all, we'll allocate a memory here. Okay. Then initialize the data, and we will initialize the data. And then we will transfer this data to GPU using the CUDA functions available. All right. Then transfer the device. Device means GPU. This is a device, and host is a CPU. Then execute the instructions onto a GPU, onto a device, and give the result back to CPU. So this is the result back. So these are the steps that is to be followed. So similarly here it is shown. So now the program is same like a C program. Some part serial code is there, some parallel code is there, and some GPU code is there, and the data executed, and it is given to GPU. Now we'll see the same two applications, that is vector operation and the matrix multiplication operations onto GPU, how we can execute that. But before that, let us see some of the applications of these execution onto GPU or GPGPU applications. So you all are aware that the self-driving cars is the Tesla cars. These are the applications in which it has to get all the data. It has to sense. You can see that it has to sense what is ahead. It has to sense here. It has to sense what is on this side. All right. Is any vehicle coming from back? Isn't it? It has to sense everything. It has to sense even the road, these everything. And it is a real-time data. It is not the data. It is a real-time data. So this real-time data has to be processed, and based on that, the decision has to be taken. And then it has to be either, it has to go ahead, it has to reduce the speed, it has to accelerate, or it has to give a brake. So these different decisions it has to take, this car. So in this, a huge computing is required, and that you need a GPU computing. Then fast video transcoding, that is at the same time there's a real program is going on. So that real program has to be transferred into 4 different types of devices, has the different kind of layouts, different kinds of encoding. Then you have to encode it, decode it. So these different transcoding, real-time transcoding can be done using GPU. Real-time video enhancement, real-time the medical imaging, in which coming out with what diseases are there real time. These are different applications. The deep learning, in which real time come to know what the objective, the in front of the object is, whether it is a car, whether for a self-driving car it is typically required. Samor konik ala hai ka, then is it a man, is it a car, is it a what it is. So it has to recognize it. So that can be done using deep learning, and typically it is done like this, in which there is no these 2 steps, no feature extractions, no classifications. But in deep learning, directly the input is given, and with the help of neural network, the different neurons are present. Then based on that, the decisions are taken that what it is. So the neurons itself does the feature extraction and classification, because they train itself, and gives the output what the in front of it is, whether it is a car, whether it is a horse, whether it is a dog, and same like that. So these are some of the applications of high performance computing. Now let us see how we can do our 2 programs using CUDA.
Okay.
So now vector operation using CUDA, how we can do it. So it is the same program in which the CUDA function is written. That CUDA function is written like this, in which it is indicated as global. Global indicates that it is had to be executed onto a device. And then it's a vector operation. The input is this. And this I is actually the thread number, or you can call it as a person number. So for example, if I go back to the slide, if I go back to this slide, so now here, the first person, if there are n persons available, or n cores are available, then the core 1 must do only this task, only work onto this data and just leave back. Second core has to do this task and just stop. All right. So if there are n cores available, then these can be executed at one time by n cores, and they will only work on their respective data. So that is how we can get to know that which core will work on which data. So that is obtained using the thread number. All right. So in the theoretical part of CUDA, madam will explain you how to get the thread number, what is block ID, what is thread ID. So these concepts will be required to get to know that what is a thread number. So thread number is nothing but actually the person number or the core number. And that core number is executing the operations onto that data and giving that operation onto that single data, and then coming back again and leaving the thing, right? So now what it is done, it is first of all, the device memory is allocated, and that device memory is copied. The host memory is allocated, the device memory is allocated, then the data is copied. CUDA mem CPY is used to copy the data from the host to device, and then the kernel is called. Kernel is actually calling the GPU. So GPU is called with number of threads and the number of blocks and the number of threads. All right. The concept of it, the number of blocks and number of threads, it's a theoretical concept that you will learn in your theory classes. And then the result of that is again CUDA MEM CPY that is copied, that is from device into the host, that is into a CPU. And then the result is obtained. So let us work it out, this program. So how to execute this program? Let us see it. So it is run using NVCC compiler, or it is called as NVIDIA CUDA compiler. CUDA is a proprietary of NVIDIA. NVIDIA is the #1 manufacturer into GPU, or and second is the AMD, that is manufactures the GPUs. And CUDA is installed. So how to install CUDA, how to that you will learn it into your some different sessions, practical sessions or that sessions. I assume that you all know that the CUDA is installed and how to run it. So it is run using NVCC command, that is NVIDIA CUDA compiler. Now I also have in this code as OpenMP code. Do you see that I'm using hash pragma OMP parallel for? So that is I'm using cores also, and I'm using GPUs also. So I have to compile using OpenMP, also using CUDA also. So it is compiled using X compiler. X compiler is a GNU compiler, and I am using S-F OpenMP and the name of the file. So name of the file is now let us run it. So see, in just 0.9 second, it has completed the task. Do you remember that task is done in how much time? See, the serial computation was done in 7 seconds. The parallel computation was done in 2.4 seconds. The GPU computation is done in just 0.9 seconds. See the improvement in performance. All right. So this is how you can improve the performance using CUDA. I'll just briefly show you how matrix multiplication can be done using CUDA. So in this case, it is now the time complexity is reduced to O of n using n square cores. So that's why we require only single for loop to execute the task, to complete the task. The 2 for loops is already taken care by the 2 cores, that's n square cores. All right. Now, same thing. Now, first of all, the memory is allocated. 3 memories are allocated. Some random values are taken into this, and then it is copied into device memory. And then the CUDA function is called, and again the result is copied back into device. So now let us run it. The execution time for 1024 by 1024 matrix multiplication is just 0.15 seconds. Do you see the performance improvement? O of n. See now, do you remember how much time was taken? The serial computation took 31 seconds. The parallel computation, which was O of n square time complexity, this was O of n cube time complexity. This was O of n square complexity, took around 10 seconds. And this is O of n time complexity that took around 0.15 seconds. So see the improvement in performance. So this is how you can do the GPU computing using CUDA or parallel computing using CUDA. Moreover, you need to understand the multi-core processor computing or multi-core computing and the GPU computing to actually completely utilize the heterogeneous computing. So just knowing the CPU computing is not enough, or just knowing the multi-core computing is not enough, but knowing the all things, knowing the CPU computing, multi-core computing, and the GPU computing is required for leveraging the complete performance of heterogeneous computing or heterogeneous system. Typically, all machines have now GPUs. All right. So that was from my side. Any question you can ask.